All right, so everyone holding by Pirke Avos, Ethics of Our Fathers, as it is known. Again, want to welcome everyone holding by Pirke Avos, Ethics of Our Fathers. As it is known, we are in chapter 2, Mishna 16. And this is part 2. There's going to be part 3, part 4, part 5. Going to be a lot of parts there we'll have to speak about. So the Mishnah says that in the name of Rabbi Yeshua, says that an evil eye, evil inclination, hatred of other people remove a person from this world. Right? You got 3 things that obviously are bad that can take a person out of this world. Now, spoke last week, right, about the evil eye, and we're going to continue with that. Right? But in general, we look at this literally, that someone who's jealous of others, speak more about the evil eye, the evil inclination, which can cause a person obviously to go against what God wants. Always constant battles, we always say, between the good inclination and the evil inclination, right? And hatred of other people. Now, we have to see about how far that goes, but the Torah says pretty clear that a Jew is not allowed to hate another Jew, right? You're not allowed to hate another Jew, which is a Torah prohibition, right? An absolute Torah prohibition. Technically, I would say that you could hate a non-Jew, right? A Jew could hate a non-Jew, but it's probably not a good thing, right? I think most people would agree it's not a good thing. And the reason is no one should hate anybody, right? Hatred's a bad thing. In general, you can hate what a person does, right? You can certainly hate what they do. Hating the person themselves, right? It's another issue, right? There's a lot of strong rhetoric you hear. You hear it in in the media, which I'm saying anyone should listen to the media anyway, right? But there's always strong strong rhetoric of people, who we disagree with, right? Nowadays, people don't necessarily speak to each other, right? They speak at each other. They don't hear what the other person says. They go like this, right? They go in opposite directions. Now you can tell me, okay, people are passionate, they're passionate what they believe in, and that's okay. Nothing wrong with being passionate. Some people look at that as being, let's say conceited, or let's say cocky, or someone who's like really sure of themselves. Because we have a problem today. They're one of the main things, people fight against. In general, I would say, is lack of self-esteem. Right? You got people, people will say, come on, there are people out there that think they're God's gift to the world and are conceited. I don't think that's the majority of people. I mean, I think there are plenty of people like that, as well. But there's a serious problem, lack of self-esteem for a lot of different reasons. But in general, hating ideas that go against the Torah, that you're allowed to do, right? That you're really obligated to do, right? King Solomon says, in Ecclesiastes, says it's time to love, time to hate, right? Again, even King Solomon would say, we're not talking about the person per se. It's not a personal, it's not a personal thing. It's the fact that they do what God does not want them to do, right? In general, King David himself says in the book of Psalms, there's a time, that I love those that love you. I fight against those that hate you. Now, what are you fighting against? You're fighting against ideas, right? Essentially, you're fighting against ideas that God doesn't want, that God despises, that God hates, right? I'll give one example. In the book of Deuteronomy, talks about the end of Parshas Chonon, Deuteronomy chapter 25, I think it's 25, or 23, I think it's 25. It speaks about the end of the parsha. Over there, it says there's a mitzvah to wipe out Amalek. Right? There's a mitzvah to wipe out Amalek, and terrible things that Amalek has done, right, throughout the millennium. So there's a mitzvah to wipe them out. Now, if you knew who Amalek was, now some say the Germans themselves were Amalek, right, during World War II. Many rabbinic authorities say that because of their sheer cruelty, because the Torah says what is one of the character traits of Amalek is that they are going to prey on the weak. They're going to fight from behind. It's never like a fair fight, right, by them. By them, they're going to pick on and fight against people who can't defend themselves, right? They can't defend themselves, right? People that are weak, people that have no one to defend them, whatever. That's what they do. That's what they do. So there would be a mitzvah, certainly a mitzvah to wipe them out, because what they're doing, is bad against, humanity. It's bad against God. Now, what do they do against humanity? Why do we still have to fight against them, in every generation, even though, technically speaking, we don't know who they are physically? And the answer is, what did Amalek bring to the world? Right? They said, the verse itself, let's just look at the verse here. One second. Let's see where it is. Yeah. This is Deuteronomy chapter 25. I got that right. That's good for me. Chapter 25, verse, seemingly it is verse 17. Now, 17, 18. What does it say over there? Let me just bring it up here. It says, the last portion we read in Parshas Kitei, again, it's going to be Deuteronomy chapter 25, verses 17 to 19. Right? You must remember what the nation of Amalek did to you when you're traveling after you left Egypt. Now, it's kind of interesting, just mention that for a second. You got to understand, Jewish people on the biggest role of their lives at this point, they came out of Egypt. God decimated, totally destroyed Egypt, wiped them off the face of the map pretty much. It took all the wealth. I mean, the country's in shambles. Whole country decimated. They come to Mount Sinai. God gives the Torah to the Jewish people. The Jewish people, at the highest point, the highest point at this point, that they've ever been at. Right? I mean, they weren't a nation for so long, but it doesn't matter. They were at the highest point at this stage. And Amalek comes along and fight against them. Now, if you're a nation that was enslaved by Egypt, right? They were the only nation, quote unquote, that was enslaved by Egypt that actually came out, right? They actually, they actually survived. All the other nations got, blended in with the Egyptians. They never escaped. Israel, Jewish people, only ones that escaped. Totally not according to nature. Because you got to remember, when Moses looks up at the stars and he knew how to read the stars, and God's telling him to go, why does Moses complain? Right? Why does Moses say, no, they're not going to listen to me, I have a list, I speak funny, whatever. So, God gets kind of angry, says, who puts the speech, in a person? Says, I do. I take care of it. Okay, so you speak funny, very good. Don't you have a brother? You can send your brother to Pharaoh to speak. It's not an issue. But, you got to ask the question, what's going on here? Right? The fact that he complains against God, they're not going to listen to me. I need, you gotta send me, some miracles, some tricks, so they'll believe in me. So God did stick trick, right? Right. Moses has his staff, and he says, throw the staff on the ground. Staff turns into a snake. He says, okay, grab the tail of the snake, grabs the tail of the snake, turns back to a staff. Right. So I want you to do the stick trick. I want you to show, you have these abilities, etc. So what's he complaining about? What in the world is Moses complaining about? They're not going to believe me. I speak funny, all these things. So Moses understood. He saw. He saw in heaven. He saw there was an angel of God, angel of the Jewish people, and an angel of Egypt, intertwined together like a double helix. Right? Anyone's ever seen a DNA molecule, right? A double helix, right? So Moses says, I don't understand. Right? Or let me give you a little bit of background. Every nation out there has their own guardian angel. Meaning that this guardian angel is going to plead for the needs of the nation. Right? Every nation has their guardian angel. So what did Moses see? What did he see through looking at the stars? That an angel of God of the Jewish people and an angel of Egypt were intertwined, right? Attached together again. Anyone's ever seen a DNA molecule, right? They're intertwined like this, meaning that there's no possible way, according to nature, the Jewish people escape. So Moses says to God and says, why are you sending me? This is seemingly impossible, right? In other words, if you would put this in a supercomputer, 10 times out of 10, 100 times out of 100, 1,000 times out of 1,000, the Jewish people never escape. Impossible. Impossible according to nature. So what does God say? God says to Moshe Rabbeinu, says to Moses, hey Mo, he says, don't you know? I'm above nature. I can do anything, right? I can change nature. So this is one of the reasons that God takes out the Jewish people, defying nature. Totally defying nature. Now, there is a theory. I don't think it's so popular, but there is such a theory. You know why the miracles happen? Not that God did it, not that Torah said it, but you know why the miracles happen? All the miracles that happened in Egypt. So this theory says because Saturn was out of orbit. I mean, come on, you got to be really grasping at straws. Right, that's the best you can come up with. Saturn was out of orbit. So, they want to explain the Egyptians, drowned in the sea because it was high tide. Again, you take God out of the picture. Totally out of the picture. That's why the Torah says, God says, I'm going to show my power. I'm going to show my power. I'm going to show my power to everybody. Now, the question over there was, again, a little side point here, that God says, I'm going to show my might, my power. What is he talking about? Who's he showing his power to? Some commentaries say showing his power to the Egyptians. They're going to see my power and what I can do. Others say it was for the sake of the Jewish people. God is showing his power, so, they're going to serve him. They're going to want to serve him. Look what he did. He's demolishing the nation that's enslaving them. He's going to take them out. Right? Of course, who doesn't want to sign up? Right? Who doesn't want to sign up? Right? Let's be, we'll be part of this group. We'll serve God. Beautiful. You got to remember also that 80% of the Jewish people don't come out. They don't come out of Egypt. Only 20%. Right? Also kind of mind-boggling. 20% come out. Right? So imagine, so you get about, 3-4 million people at Mount Sinai. That means you got 7-8 million people that don't get out of Egypt. Now, God's going to take them out of Egypt. And God says, you're going to come out. There's certain things you have to do, but you're going to come out. How can so many Jews not go out? What happened to the 8 million people? Let's say it was 8 million people. Yeah, what happened to the 8 million people? Never made it out. They died through the plague of darkness. Right? Plague of darkness wasn't just one night. It was over a certain amount of time. So that plague of darkness. One of the reasons is so that so many Jews also died. They didn't want the Egyptians to see and say, look, God killed your own people also. I mean, kind of deflating if they're all going to escape and they're going to leave when a lot of your own people didn't want to get out. But let's keep in mind one thing. Yeah, they're being enslaved. Yeah, it's terrible. What's going on and the pain they feel and everything else. But why didn't they want to go out? Like they're living in Auschwitz. Like, it's pretty bad, right? It's pretty bad. Yeah. Why wouldn't they want to go out? So one simple reason. Where are they going to? Where is God leading them? You're going to say he's going to lead them to the promised land, right? Where else is he going to lead? He's going to lead them out, right? He's going to lead them out. So if he's going to lead them out, right? If he's going to lead them out, then what happens? Where are they going? Where are they going? One simple answer. So they're going to go to Mount Sinai. Very good. But essentially, where are they going? Going to a desert. Now, the last time I checked, if you go into a desert, there's no oasis, right? There's nothing there. A lot of sand. Tremendous amount of sand. I remember I went from was in Eilat many, many years ago. And I went to Egypt to visit for a certain amount of time. And, you keep seeing signs, 400 kilometers, 350 miles, to Cairo. 320 miles, 310 miles, 300, whatever. You're getting closer and closer. And all you see to the right of you, to the left of you is sand. You don't see anything else. Sand. That's all you see. That's what a desert is. Sand. Yeah. Finally, you get closer. All of a sudden, you start to see like civilization. But you've gone like hundreds of kilometers, you don't see anything. Nothing. Nothing on either side. So some of the people think, okay, is God, as great as God is, as great as Moses is, where are they going to take us? Where are we going to go? You know where they're going to go? In the desert. But God promised he's going to take care of their needs. Very good. Yeah, he's going to make them into a nation. Even better. They're going to go to the promised land. Tremendous. But they have to go through a desert. If you go through a desert, no oasis. You don't have stops along the way, that you're going to be able to sustain yourself. No population there. Nothing there, essentially. So they opted, and they said, we'll stay here. We'll stay here. It's kind of mind-boggling. You think about it. You go to the book of Numbers. You see a number of stories where Jewish people seemingly lose their faith, or their faith was weaker. Now you gotta understand, the ones that got out of Egypt and heard God face to face at Mount Sinai. They heard him at Mount Sinai, whatever that means. Some of the commentaries say they heard the first 2 Ten Commandments. They died. God brought them back to life. Some say they heard all the 10 Commandments. It was like that. And others say they only heard the first 2, and the other 8, they said to Moses, listen, this is too big of an experience for us. You tell us what God said. Okay. Yeah. This is the greatest generation in the history of man. That they witness God face to face Mount Sinai. Okay. They really think they're not going to be able to go in the land because you got these giants there? What? God can't take care of the giants? Didn't God just wipe out the world power at that time? He wiped out the world power at that time. Decimated them. Decimated the entire country. Took all their wealth away. Right? But he left Pharaoh around to be able to see the utter destruction. He left him around. And then he became the king of Pago. He became the king of Nineveh. Right? Big letdown over here. Imagine he's almost like king of the world. Right? He's the king of the world power at the time. Yeah, his country gets decimated, they throw him out. But God kept him alive to see the entire destruction. And then when Jonah goes to Nineveh, tell him what's going on, he got the message. They all repent, right? They all got saved. But he got destroyed. The whole nation got destroyed. So if God destroyed the whole nation, and God takes them out, and there are many miracles in the desert as well, they really don't think God can take care of the nations of the land of Israel when he's going to bring them in. Or they complain they're in the desert. You know what they say? Oh, Mother Hubbard, ain't nothing in the cupboard. They get the manna every day, double portion on Friday. Tasted whatever they thought it would taste like. Beautiful. So they got this manna, very good. God's not going to provide for them further. He's providing for them day in and day out. Why are they going to doubt it over here? Because, once they finish eating, there are no leftovers. There are no leftovers. Now, is there a guarantee because they got manna yesterday, they got it today, they got it the day before, they got it weeks before, months before, it's going to continue? Now you tell me it should continue. Very good. Then they complain while they're in the desert. We missed the fish. We missed the watermelon in Auschwitz. Really? You missed the fish? Whatever the manna tasted like, that's what it was. So you could have tasted fish, could have tasted meat, could have tasted anything you want. They missed the fish? They missed the watermelon? What's going on here? They just seen God face to face at Mount Sinai. They witnessed all the miracles. Oh, then you got the story of Korach. I mean, whatever. You got all these things going on. Right? So what's the bottom line? So the bottom line is they lack some level. They lack the Emunah. That's what you have to say. They were lacking faith and belief that, not that God couldn't take care of business. They knew God could take care of business. He just wiped out the world power. Knocked them out. Yeah. See, so God couldn't take care of business in the desert. He couldn't give them water. He couldn't take care of their needs. Sorry, he couldn't take care of, these other nations. Of course he could. They didn't deny that. But, one thing they might have thought, or it could be a number of things, but one of them is maybe we don't deserve it. Maybe we're not fitting to get these miracles happen. Maybe we're not fitting for that to happen. And if it does, and then we'll starve to death. And then we'll die. So better we have, we had meals. We weren't starving in Egypt. We had fish. We had fish. We had watermelon. We had all good things. Don't you remember they used to beat you? Don't you remember you used to work like 15 hours a day in the boiling sun or the freezing cold? But we had, we weren't in a desert. We were part of a populated place. There was food there. Yeah. So it wasn't the food themselves they missed. What they missed was they know what they have. Here they're going into the unknown. When you go into the unknown, you don't know what to expect. Abraham, we read today. Abraham leaves, right? God tells him to leave. Lech lecha me'artzecha. Leave your home. Sorry, leave your land. Leave your house. Leave the place that you know. He was a machine. He was a kiruv machine. He was doing tremendous outreach. And God tells him to leave. Now, God says, I'm going to send you to this great place. You have children there. You have wealth there. So he says, hey, where's the test? Commentaries ask, where's the test? Right? Someone tell us, listen, I'm going to give you $100 million, $1 billion. And you have to go where I'm going to tell you to go. You can have wealth. You can have fame. Right? You're going to have everything. Everything you ever wanted. Very good. You're going to get everything you want. So everyone's going to say, okay, where do I sign up? But what's the problem? You have no idea where you're going. You'll be going to Yukon territory in Canada. Frozen. Yeah. You don't speak the language. You don't know the customs, bad climate. You have no idea where you're going. So some will say that's part of the test. He's going to have faith. God's going to send him wherever he's going to send him, but he has no idea where he's going. Absolutely no idea. In every step he takes, he gets the mitzvah of going. Very good. So that's certainly part of it. But someone would say, you know what? I'll take that kind of money. It doesn't matter where I go. I don't care if it's too hot. I don't care if it's too cold. It'll all be worth it because they're going to be made into an icon. Right? They're going to be made world famous. Right? They're going to have all their needs taken care of. Abraham, though, was a machine over here. He was doing unbelievable things in Orthodox. Yeah. He was, converting the men. She's converting the women, bringing everyone to believe in one God. Huge thing. Huge conglomerate over here. So he's doing all these good things, and now God uproots him. Now God says, okay, we're going here. We're going to where I'm going to show you. And no idea where he's going. What about all the success he has now? What about all the enjoyment, all the benefit he's getting now? He doesn't know where he's going. Doesn't know if he's going to be able to speak the language, not speak the language. He has no idea. He has no idea. So, he's going to the unknown. So there's nothing worse, and this will get back to Amalek. This ties in now to Amalek, right? And that is that he has no idea where he's going. Now, when you don't know where you're going, and you have a lot of doubts, so it's brought down in many places, nothing worse than being in doubt. Being in doubt where you're not sure, go this way, go that way, the other way. When you're not sure, then people panic. People have anxiety. You're in doubt. You don't know what to do. Now, comes along Amalek. Let's read the verses now. So again, Deuteronomy chapter 25, verse 17 says over there, you must remember what the nation of Amalek did to you when traveling after you left Egypt. Now, what did Amalek think? Before we get to verse 18, I forgot, mention one other thing. What did Amalek think over here? The Jewish people are in the biggest role of their lives. If the Jewish people are on the biggest role of their lives, right? If they're on the biggest role of their lives, then why would anyone start up with the Jewish people? You gotta be a little bit crazy, start up with the Jewish people. You gotta be, as Kaufman would say, off your cotton picking head. They're on the biggest role of their lives. Egypt estimated. Yeah, you don't want to start up with these people. Now, there's a parable to explain why they would have done it. And the parable is like someone jumping into a boiling hot cauldron. Now, what happens when a person jumps in? They're going to get burned alive, right? They're going to get burned alive. So what happens? Second person jumps in. What's going to happen, second person? Also going to get burned alive. Third person, same thing. Fourth person, same thing. But the more people that jump into the cauldron, eventually it's going to cool over time. Yeah. Now, there might be sacrifices here. There might be a number of people that die. But even if a number of people die, they don't really care because they're going to cool the whole thing down. And once they cool the whole thing down, that's a different issue. Because maybe at some point, Jewish people are going to slip up. Something's going to happen, whatever it may be. So because of that, even though they're on a big roll right now, they may be able to work on them and eventually not have that divine protection. Right? That's why I brought that up. Now, says the Torah, verse 18, Deuteronomy chapter 25, verse 18. The Torah says how on the way, it says, Asher korcha b'derech. The word korcha can either mean colt, right? The root of it could be kufresh hay, right? I mean, that really is the root, or kufresh yud, right? Which means they happened upon them. They happened upon them on the way. Now, what does it mean they happened upon you? So the word korcha can come from the word mikra. What does the word mikra mean? By chance. It means by chance. So what does Amalek stand for? Chance. They don't believe in supernatural. Right? They don't believe in supernatural. They don't believe there's someone else out there running, controlling things. Right? So they attacked you by surprise. Mutilated all the weak ones at your rear. In other words, they don't fight fair. They don't fight against the strong ones. They fight against people who can't defend themselves. You were faint from thirst, weary. They did not fear God. All right, let's analyze this for a second. They attack you by surprise, right? Mikra means a chance happening. So what did Amalek bring to the world? This is Amalek we're talking about. What did they bring to the world? That stuff happens by chance. There is no supernatural. So therefore, what are we fighting against essentially? What are we fighting against every year against Amalek? And why do we have to obliterate Amalek's name even if we don't know who they are? Because of what they bring to the world. What do they bring to the world? They bring to the world no belief in God. Yeah? No belief in a supernatural power. Essentially, what do they bring to the world? They bring to the world atheism. That's what they bring to the world. They bring atheism to the world. Right? So now comes on the Torah. Right? Comes on the Torah, and the Torah says that they attack you by surprise. So what's one of the things we have to wipe out? Not just physically, we can't do that because we don't know who they are today. But what do we have to wipe out? What they brought to the world. Now, the gematria, the numerical value of the word Amalek, and the numerical value of the word suffix, which means doubt, is exactly the same. So what did Amalek bring to the world? Doubts. Doubt in the supernatural. Haman, Mr. Haman himself, comes from who? Comes from Amalek. Now, he and Achashverosh read the book of Esther, right? They're very close, kind of two peas in a pod. And Achashverosh gets very upset when he hears Haman wants to destroy Esther's people. He goes outside, sees a beautiful garden being chopped down by these little angelic elves, right? Ripping his garden to shreds. They all, and he asks, like, who told you to do this? They all say Haman, so you see, an angel can lie, but okay. He still doesn't want to kill him. Now he's rip-roaring mad, even madder. He comes in and he sees Haman on Esther's couch or Esther's bed. So he screams, like, you scoundrel, you're going to try and take my wife in front of my face? And then, he tries to get up, he can't get up. He's pinned down. The Gemara says he's pinned down by angels. So God opens up his eyes, he sees angels pinning him down. Now, if he represents Amalek or he comes from Amalek, he can't say, I'm being pinned down. Of course I want to get up. I'm being pinned down by angels. And what's Achashverosh going to say? He said, what are you talking about? You're Amalek. You don't believe in supernatural. But at this point also, Achashverosh doesn't want to kill him. Right? He still doesn't want to kill him. When does he finally decide to kill him? When Charvona, who's Elijah the prophet, tells him, he says, oh, take a look over here. He set up a gallows, 50 cubits high, in order to kill Mordechai. Once Achashverosh saw that, and he thought that now his life's in danger, then he has him killed. Right? That's like the last straw. Right? We felt his life was in danger. But the point is that Haman is killed by his own motto. Because really, he'd love to scream out and say, come on, I got these angels pinning me down. Right? It's not like, I have any interest to take her against your will. I'm being pinned down. It's not my fault. And what would have Achashverosh done? It would have left. Because you see from the verses over here, what does Amalek represent? He says they attacked you by surprise, chance happening. They don't believe. They don't believe in the supernatural, right? In the supernatural. They don't believe in God. Everything is by chance. But so that's what we're fighting against in this world. That's what they brought to the world. They brought to the world this idea of atheism, that there is no supernatural. Right? So that is what we're fighting against, on a yearly basis. And what did he do? He mutilated all the weak ones at your rear, right at your flank. Now, what does that tell you? Another thing, Amalek never fights fair. Right? Amalek fights against weak people. They don't fight against the strong ones. You were faint from thirst, weary, they did not fear God. They fought against people that couldn't defend themselves, too tired, too weary, thirsty. You're fighting against people who can't defend themselves. And another aspect over here is they did not fear God. Now, even though they have this belief, all right, let's analyze for a second. Even though they have this belief there's no such thing as supernatural, right? They don't fear God. It's very hard to imagine if they heard all the miracles happen in Egypt. Because everybody had heard it after a while, got out what happened in Egypt. So what happened over here? You're going to start up with this nation? So you say, hey, but they believe in atheism, they believe no supernatural, so they'll explain things according to natural means. That's really the answer. Because they'll look at all the miracles and say, they weren't miracles. Come on, the sea split, high tide. These other things, yeah, we got natural ways to explain it. They got natural ways to explain it. But still, they don't have a doubt. Let's say there's a 5 to 10% chance that what happened in Egypt was really from their God. Let's say. Would you want to start up with such a people on that? Even if it's a small chance. Now, some people would think, come on, if there's a 90% chance when you play roulette, it's going to come up, red 13, you're going to be a billionaire. True? Very, very true. So example I give is imagine a person has a gun, right? Someone puts in a bullet, right? 6-chamber gun. 6-chamber gun, they say, okay, pull the trigger. Now, you got a 16.6666% chance of blowing your brains up. Yeah? It's not a high percentage. Now, most people, I guarantee, wouldn't take the chance. Why wouldn't they take the chance? Because they're going to say, I'm going to be part of that group that blew their brains up. Who says I'm going to be part of the 84% that don't blow their brains up? What's the difference here? I would tell you, even if there was a 10-chamber gun, a 10-chamber gun, you have 10% chance of blowing your brains up. I would still think, maybe today's different, I would still think most people wouldn't do it. Why wouldn't they do it? Because they see the gun as something real. They see if they pull the trigger, they might actually kill themselves. Yeah. I'd probably go further to say even if it was less the percentage. But there are people out there saying, no, I would take the chance. 10% chance, come on. I got a 90% chance of being successful. That you won't die. Very good. Very, very good. But if you have that gun in front of you and you put it to your head, don't think they won't be praying like no tomorrow that doesn't, they're not part of that 10%. Even if they take the chance. I don't think most people would take the chance. Right? Maybe today's different. Maybe a lot of people would. I don't know. I would tend to say no. Why? What's the difference? What's the difference? Here is something that's in front of your face. You have the gun in front of your face. If you put bullets in there, it works. It could kill people. Right? Something that's real. This is something, come on. Maybe it did happen. Maybe it didn't happen. Maybe it was exaggerated. Maybe other things. Same thing. I would say the same thing. Let's say what we talk about reward and punishment is real. That was going to happen in the next world. The person's going to get punished for the sins that they do, Jews or non-Jews, doesn't matter. Right? There's payback in this world or the next world. Okay. Now, my Rebbe would say, I've never met anyone been in that world and come back. Okay. But there are people who've had out-of-body experiences. They heard things. They saw things. I don't know what their soul saw, and heard. So even without that, now let's say, the punishments as severe as they may be in the spiritual world, however that works, let's say, for argument's sake, we certainly believe it's true. We certainly believe, that a person is going to have to pay back for the sins they've done, whether in this world or in the next world. Yeah. How a soul feels the punishment, good question, but the soul also gets punished. Now, so everyone would say, I've never seen anyone been in that world and come back. Doesn't mean he doesn't believe in it. Of course he believes in it, right? That's not a question, right? So I've heard people say, when I get there, I'll worry about it. Or someone once said, when I die, I'm only going 6 feet under. So I told them, I hope for your sake you're right, because if I'm right, you're in serious trouble. They're like, I don't believe in that. Right? So that's the whole thing about, life after death and whatever. It's like, well, can you explain how that works in like a soundbite? So I knew after 5 seconds that would be the end of the conversation. So I said, I'm going to send you a link, watch it. I don't know, watched it, didn't watch it, whatever. Why do people not believe in it? Why is secular Jews going to say, oh, come on, you believe in that? Hocus pocus is that? Doesn't even say anywhere in the Torah, doesn't even specify about it. What the punishments are. So like, yeah, come on. I got more important things to worry about. Now, why is that not the same as someone taking a gun and pulling the trigger? Let's say I would tell somebody that you have a 16% chance. You have a 16% chance, let's say, that we're right. And that when a person dies, and they're going to get judged for whatever they've done, let's say they've done terrible things, against God. So let's say, when they get up there, they're going to go through unbelievable pain that they couldn't even imagine. That they couldn't even imagine what it was, and they're going to suffer tremendously. Now, if it's a 16.6666% chance that we're right, and that pain is going to be, if anyone's ever had a migraine, multiply that by infinity, what the pain's going to be like. You can imagine what the pain's going to be like, but you got to say, come on, abracadabra, no one's ever been there and come back, blah, blah, blah. Why should I worry about it now? So this is the same thing, because they don't believe it's true. Not that they've ever learned about it. They don't think it's true. But why don't they think it's true? If there's a percentage of a chance that it could be true, why in the world wouldn't they be worrying about it now? Right? So what's the answer? First of all, by Amalek, right? We're going to say the same thing over here. Ein doim Maria l'shmiya. Right? There's no comparison between something you saw and something you heard. Give an example. In Parshas Yisro, Moses' father-in-law, Jethro, Yisro, says Yisro heard. What did he hear? He heard the war against Amalek, and he heard about the coming out of the sea. What about all the plagues? He didn't hear about that? He heard about that. He heard about other things. And he wants to join the Jewish people. Very good. What happened to everybody else? Didn't the whole world hear? Essentially, the whole world heard. If the whole world heard, how come only Israel came? Right? We know there was a mixed multitude that came out of Egypt that converted. Whether they came out of Egypt or they came from, other places, wherever it was that they converted. Okay. Yeah. So we know what happened to them. They caused the sin of the golden calf. Good. That's another discussion. But Yisro's the only one that heard. Now, everybody else heard. So it can't be the only one. But what did he do? Yisro took to heart what happened. And he says, I want to be part of these people. So he has to go through conversion, right? He has to go through conversion because the Torah is already given. And he wants to join the Jewish people. Very good. But it's ironic. He heard what happened. He wasn't there. He heard what happened. But he's the one that jumped forward and said, I want to be part of the Jewish people. Other nations heard. Word trickled out what was going on and what happened. They definitely heard. But we just said, Ain't doing Maria Lishmiya. There's no comparison to what you saw with your eyes and what you heard. Right? But even seeing with your eyes, maybe a person can be deceived also. So there's a story. Rabbi takes a taxi, here in Israel, and the taxi driver, starts talking to him. This rabbi got this unbelievable miracle I have to tell you. Unbelievable story. So he's okay. What's the story? The story was he was after the army. I think the story after the army, and where him and his buddies travel. Whenever they go to Africa, right? They go to Africa. They want to, see the sights and whatever. So they go there, and one night, talking, and one of the friends outside, and all of a sudden they hear him screaming. What happened? He got attacked by a snake, huge snake. And as the snake's attacking him, they want to try, they're trying, whatever they can to get the snake off. Right? And even if they had a gun, it wouldn't have mattered because, they might kill their friend in the process. Well, so meanwhile, the snake's getting tighter around their friend. And essentially, he's having the life squeezed out of him. They know what to do. Right? So one of them says, hey, say Shema Yisrael. Right? Declare God's oneness in the world. Say Shema Yisrael. They know nothing from nothing. Right? They say Shema Yisrael. He says Shema Yisrael. Screams out Shema Yisrael. Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Hashem save me. And the snake loosens its grip and slithers away. True story. This person who the miracle happened to said, this is not, by chance. Goes back to Israel, becomes an Orthodox Jew. Right? On the spot, he repents. Saw an open miracle. Open miracle. So this taxi driver, is telling this rabbi the story. Now, he was there. He saw it. He witnessed it. Cab driver didn't become an Orthodox Jew. So this rabbi asked him, he said, so what happened to you? He said, how come you didn't change? You saw an open miracle. You saw the open miracle. Yeah. What did the taxi driver answer? He said, yeah, but it didn't happen to me. He said, it happened to someone else. It didn't happen to me. But he was there. He was there. So two people can see the same thing. One person, it changes them. Another person, they go back to being the same person. So now, you could say, okay, maybe, even if someone saw the miracles, maybe they explain different ways, this, that, maybe. But if someone sees something like that, it's going to have an effect. There's a big difference, though, if you heard about it. You weren't there. Doesn't matter what eyewitnesses say. You get all these eyewitnesses, right? Which is we're the only, so-called religion that makes this claim. You have all these eyewitnesses that were there. They verified it. They came to Mount Sinai. They told their kids, their grandkids, they were there firsthand. Now, grandkids didn't see it. Great-grandkids didn't see it. But how do they verify it? Because they heard it. Because their grandfather heard it. And their great-grandfather heard it. And they pass it down generation. That's what the Passover Seder is. And we declare, every Passover, we tell the story. Because there's an obligation for the father to tell the story to the son. And usually in this generation or previous generations, the parents aren't going to lie to their child. Right? Today, I don't know. But previous generation, that they wouldn't lie to their kid. Now, how does the father know the story? Because his father told him. How does his father know the story? Because his father told him. It wasn't a big game of telephone. They were there. Right? Make it a little bit graphic. How many of those generations you have in the Passover Seder goes back to Mount Sinai? So you have to remember, you had 4 generations of Passover Seder. You had a great-grandfather, grandfather, father, and a son. So let's say, okay. And at one point, that great-grandfather was the youngest son. So let's say you had a great-grandfather, 80 years old. Yeah, 80 years old. Great-grandchild is 7 years old, right? Let's say. Right? So now, that great-grandfather's telling over the story. Yeah, so you go back 80 years. They go back 80 years. So now, right? So now you're in, middle, let's say the 1800s. Now that that's so he must have seen his great grandfather. Yeah. So that youngest child also saw the great grandfather. So if you go back those generations, how many of those generations does it take to go back to giving the Torah Mount Sinai? About 80 generations. See if you tell me it's like 2,000 years, 2,500 years, so it sounds like a huge number. But when you have 4 generations of the Seder, right? You go back 2 or 3 Seders in that family already in the 1700s. Yeah. You go back another 2, 3, you're back in the 1500s, 1400s. It's not a big jump. Right? The youngest generation saw the oldest generation. At one point, that oldest generation was the youngest. They say, oh, it's big game telephone, this and that. But that's what's passed down generation to generation. If you go anywhere on the 15th of Nisan, which is the night of Passover, anywhere in the world, right? Anywhere in the world, you're going to have 3 matzahs. You're going to have 4 cups of wine or grape juice, 5th cup for Elijah the prophet. You're going to have charosot, you're going to have bitter herbs. Now, boy, it's an interesting coincidence. If you go anywhere in the world, it's the same. Doesn't matter how watered down it is, right? That's not even the point, right? But you have one event in history that we commemorate every year saying this is exactly what happened. And we have to reenact it. No other so-called religion is gonna do that. It's gonna go back all these generations or whatever. Right? Because again, you're talking about telling the story of the exodus from Egypt. And what happened after the exodus from Egypt? Jews got the Torah, Mount Sinai. Right? That's exactly what happened. So you got this whole story, right? That there's an obligation, the Torah says, for a Jew to tell over the story at that time. And that's passed down generation to generation. But again, you're not going that far back, right? So the great grandfathers, the great grandchild tells great grandpa, says, how do you know? How do you know the story is true? Why are you making me eat this matzah? I don't even like it. Like, how can you force me to, how can you tell me this is true? What evidence do you have? So what do you mean? I was also the Passover Seder when I was your age. And your great grandfather told me the story. And we reenacted it and whatever. So you guys say, okay, how did he know the story? Maybe he's senile, maybe. That age, maybe, who knows? Right? So you tell me, okay, but how did he know? His father told him. See, if this never happened, one generation, that Moses tells the Jewish people, this is what you have to do, in every generation. You have to, tell the story. What happened from the Exodus from Egypt. Someone can say, but I wasn't there. Why are you going to make me do this if I wasn't there? Right? How do I know what happened? Well, he wouldn't have said that because he was there. He was part of that generation. So anyone else afterwards, next generation, right? Next generation, they say, they keep telling over the stories. But how'd you know? Like, Dad, how do you know the story? Well, I was there. I was there. And then this son's going to tell his son. They're going to say, but how do you know? Why don't they go through all this? He says, because Grandpa was there. Right? Grandpa was there. So if Grandpa was there, you're not going to say he was senile. He was there. He saw it with his own eyes. Now, you could tell me people can see different things. 2 people, one person can say it's a miracle, one person can say not, whatever. This is a whole generation. This is between 2 and 3 million people. They ain't going to get it wrong. They all saw it. They all passed it down. Now, a person can say, come on, it's a big game of telephone, but at the end of the day, you have generation after generation telling you that it happened, right? It's a very interesting coincidence. A lot of the customs, or all of the customs, give or take, you go anywhere in the world, they're all going to be the same. You go to the evening service that we say, a lot of it has to do with coming out of Egypt. The mezuzah on the door about coming out of Egypt. A lot of things we say by Kiddush Friday night. Zecher L'Tzias Mitzrayim, remembering coming out of Egypt. Very good. Well, if it never happened, why is it there? Why does it have the book of Exodus there? So there's a conservative rabbi many years ago. Guy makes a ton of money a year. Yeah, and seventh day of Passover gets up and he says the Exodus from Egypt never happened. So if I would have been there, I would have said, okay, so why don't we eat matzah? Why don't we clean our house? Why can't we eat leavened products? Why, Oh, it's a myth. If it's a myth, why would I do it? If it never happened, why not? It's just a custom for the Jewish people, but it never really happened. Really? Rip out, a good chunk of the Exodus from Egypt? A good chunk of the book of Exodus? Totally rip it out like it never happened. But I have so many things that commemorate that. See, that's why people like that get paid a ton of money. I mean, it's a crazy idea. Crazy idea. But most people make a Passover Seder. It doesn't matter how diluted down it is. Anyway, that's not the point. Right? The point is you have these people that went through this and again, back to Amalek over here, right? What does Amalek say? Amalek says they didn't fear God. They attack you by surprise. Everything happens by chance. That's who Amalek is. That's what they brought to the world. That's what atheism is today. They brought that to the world. Not that, we're not chosen anymore. No, there's nothing. There's no supernatural, period. Nothing. Zero. Yeah, let's go a little bit further in the verses. Then in verse 19, again, Deuteronomy chapter 25, verse 19, when God, your God, grant you respite from all your enemies, surrounded you in the land that God, your God, has given you to possess as an inheritance. Yeah, you must obliterate the remembrance of Amalek from beneath heaven. You must not forget. So when you're not being chased and this and that, you got to remember where your enemies are, and God's going to give you this land, i.e. the land of Israel. But the end of the verse, this is the crux of the issue. It says you must obliterate the remembrance of Amalek. Right? You must destroy. You must destroy the the remembrance of Amalek. Now, we go look at it in one of two ways. First way would be obvious. Obliterate means destroy them. In other words, go out and fight against them, kill every single one of them. And that's what King Saul was supposed to do in Samuel 1, chapter 15. He was given the command to wipe them out. Everybody. Because he left the king Agag alive. He shacked up with somebody. Eventually we have Haman. Yeah. So he had different reasons, different reasons why he kept them alive. And he kept the best of the flocks alive in order that he should sacrifice. Okay, whatever the mistake was, we're still paying the price. Yeah. The person can say, the women and children. Why do you have to wipe them out? What did they do wrong? Now, I'm going to make a comparison here. I might get in trouble, but I'm going to make a comparison anyway. Why do you have to obliterate all of them? You got to say they're innocent. They're not innocent. Why are they not innocent? They're not innocent because they're indoctrinated. All these people are Amalekites. They're all indoctrinated in that there's no God, there's no fear of God, there's no supernatural. Right? They're all atheists. They're passing that down generation to generation. So how can you leave the women alive? How can you leave the children alive? They are going to be indoctrinated. They have to be wiped out. Okay, you can't do that physically. Very good. Right? We'll get to that. You can't do that, but they would also have to be obliterated. That's what Samuel the prophet, again, he's a prophet here. Yeah, not one of us. He's a prophet. God is telling him what to tell King Saul. And for whatever reason, again, very hard to understand. That's why Tanakh is not such an easy thing to learn, right? Why is it hard to understand? Because he went against the direct command. He didn't do it. He didn't finish the job. For whatever reason. Now, so I'm going to make a comparison here. And I heard a retired former Israeli general, say a similar thing. He had no idea what he's talking about in religious terms, right? In Torah terms. But he was 100% right. And he's, when Israel was going to go in, to the Gaza Strip and take care of Hamas, one of the things he said is you cannot wipe out everyone. It's impossible to wipe out everyone. Now, again, we're not talking about gunning them down. But what did he mean? He meant you can't wipe out all of them because they've indoctrinated their kids and grandkids and everyone down the line. Everybody. Now, since they've indoctrinated everybody, then you have no choice. You have to wipe all of them off the face of the map. There is no re-education over here, which people in the West don't understand. They're indoctrinated. They believe this till they die. Yeah. They believe it till they die. Now, maybe some of them, disagree, but they're stuck or whatever, but that's not the majority. The majority indoctrinated. Now, if you take an entire populace, doesn't matter, men, women, children, older people, younger people, this, that, they're all indoctrinated. In Israel, it's no different. They're also all indoctrinated. They hate Jews, want to destroy Jews. That's what they're indoctrinated. That's what their textbooks tell them. Well, there's no one to make peace with, but I'm not going to get into politics. But the point is, the entire group itself is corrupt and evil to the core. Evil to the core. I don't care women. I don't care children. This isn't extremism. They are being brainwashed. Yeah. So this retired general, was saying that, said you can't wipe out a whole movement because they've indoctrinated the whole generation and the younger generation. So he was onto something. He was very much onto something. And when I heard that, I said, you idiot, you don't even know how it applies to Torah. This is exactly the same thing by Amalek. By the command that King Saul had given. The exact same thing. Wipe every single person out. I don't care, young babies. Doesn't matter. Wipe them all out. Why? Because you have to wipe out the ideology. The only way to wipe out the ideology is got to wipe them out. That's it. There's no rehabilitation. See, the West doesn't understand this. They think you had proper teachers, that's all going to change. Not going to change. This is how they're brainwashed. 100%. So you have a whole generation and more brainwashed. So what are you supposed to do? You think they're going to become more moderate the older they get? They're not going to become more moderate. This is what they believe. This is exactly what they believe. So they're no different. So in that sense, you got, people in the States say, yeah, you want to commit genocide. Well, they're not doing that. And the numbers certainly don't show that, but, they're lying through their teeth as they do. But okay. Now, if someone were to say that, I think you're exactly right. That's what should be done. Because the whole group has to be wiped out because they're rotten to the core. The whole group. They're going to say, be calling for mass genocide. Yeah, that's the only way to stop it. I'm not going to say it's going to happen. But the same thing. You got to wipe out Amalek, obliterate the remembrance of Amalek. Because look what they brought to the world. And they're rotten to the core. And look what the world is today. How about atheism? There is no God, except for all the Bible thumpers. Fine. Yeah. Well, they brought atheism to the world. Still alive and well. Still alive and well. So any other group, I'm not going to pick on Hamas here, any other group that does this and that are rotten to the core. There's no good people here. They don't have to be wiped out. You can't. Where are you going to start from? There is no rehabilitation. So that's what people don't understand. Like, there are good people amongst them, right? So I'm going to throw everybody under the bus, right? If you associate with Hamas, yeah, there's a problem. They want all Jews to die. Now, am I going to say every single Arab's like that? No. I'm not going to say that. There are plenty that hate Jews and want them to die. They're no different than Hamas, wherever they are. So all of them that associate with this ideology, yeah, there's only one way to stop it. You got to wipe it out. That's the only way. So comes along the Torah itself. And the Torah says, I see a lot of questions here, I'll deal with them shortly. The Torah says, you have to, in verse 19, Deuteronomy chapter 25, verse 19, you must obliterate the remembrance of Amalek from beneath the heavens. Now, the problem is, today, we don't know who Amalek is. Sancherib came, messed up all the people's, population exchanges, different things. Nobody knows who they are today. Now, you got different groups of Muslims saying they go directly to, Yishmael, right? They go directly back to Yishmael, but a lot of discrepancy with that. But nobody knows, right? I mean, we know, but that's a different story. But again, all the other nations got intertwined. They got mixed. So you can't say who's who today. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. So you can't obliterate them. There's no possible way. Because we don't know who they are, but there's an obligation if we would know. Right? Again, I mentioned before, some would say, or many would say, that the German Yimach Shemam Zichron, may their name be blotted out, may they rot wherever they are, they were part of Amalek. Just in this sheer cruelty. Because this is exactly what they did. They attacked people by surprise. They mutilated all the weak ones, sure. They fought against people that couldn't fight back. They didn't fight them directly. They didn't fight them in a fair war. Right? They fought them that way. Okay. So you have to obliterate the remembrance of Amalek from beneath the heavens. You must not forget. So physically, you can't do it. It's impossible. We don't know who they are. Physically impossible. So you must not forget. What does that mean, not forget? So that means what we have to do is we have to bring godliness to the world. We have to sanctify God's name in the world, right? We have to keep Shabbos. We have to make blessings. We have to act properly, have good character traits to bring God into the world. Because when you bring God into the world, it weakens their power. The stronger the power of God in this world and what God wants from us and what we're supposed to do, strengthens God in this world, weakens the power of atheism, the power of Amalek. That's what it does. But when people start saying, like here, it's the power of the army and, it's the might of our hands, they take God out of the picture. Yeah, that's worse for the Jewish people. And God's not going to take that sitting down. Right? Like my Rebbe would say, it's one of the worst things they could say. If they're saying, listen, God's in charge, he's running things, you have to have a standing army and whatever, the people praying are helping us, blah, 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 very good. But if they're saying it's the power of my hand, and we're doing everything to take God out of the picture, that's the greatest danger, one of the greatest dangers of the Jewish people, certainly in Israel. Because then that divine protection, going to say, oh, really? You want to tell me it's your power? And it's your might? God's going to say, I'm going to show you not so powerful. You're thinking the most powerful group, in the Middle East, I'm going to show you. So what does God do? Orchestrates October 7th. For whatever reason, he made this tremendous pogrom, right? The worst pogrom since the Holocaust. No question about it. And a lot of heads going to roll after this. Yeah. Well, what did God show him? As great as the army is and whatever, they were caught sleeping here in a major way. In a major way. Something that even Hamas themselves didn't think they would accomplish what they did. In 100 years, they wouldn't have thought they would be able to accomplish what they did. Yeah. But God made it in such a way. Israelis look really bad. Okay, so now they're mopping up and other things. Okay, but at a high price. High price then. Very high price. So God hit them right between the eyes. Oh, you think you're in charge? You think it's the power of your might? You got nuclear weapons. You think Hamas cares? They don't care. They're going to kill as many Jews as they can. Yeah. So they're going to use, they use whatever they can, whatever they can do, even if they end up dying, but as long as they try and kill Jews. Very good. So you see, sometimes more successful or less successful, whatever, but nothing to this amount. And what happened and the way it happened, and caught them sleeping. How can quote unquote the greatest army and military force in the Middle East get caught napping to such an extent? So Rabbi said on the spot, "Yeah, you think you're in charge? You think it's the power of my hands? You think it even doesn't matter? You got nuclear weapons? Guess what? I'm gonna knock you down in such a way, gonna demolish your morale here. Look what happened." Yeah. So what do we have to do? So right before the holiday of Purim, Shabbos before Purim, we read this parsha. We call parsha Zachor, to remember. Right? Parsha to remember. What are we remembering? What Amalek did. But Amalek, come on. There's no Amalek today. Let's say. There is no Amalek today. They got no one to obliterate. Very good. But at the same time, you must not forget, but what did they bring to the world? They brought doubts. The word Amalek, numerically, right? That, gematria, which means every letter has a corresponding, every Jewish letter has a corresponding number, right? Aleph is 1, Beis is 2, Gimel is 3. The word Amalek and the word Suffolk, the word doubt, have the same exact numerology. Same exact number. If you add all the letters together. That's what they brought to the world. They brought atheism to the world. Things happen by chance. For that, we got to fight against. So that, we have to have intention. Well, hear those verses to think, okay, I got to sanctify God's name. I got to, work hard over here. That's my obligation. And when we work hard and have proper character traits and do the right thing, we elevate God in this world. When not, just the opposite. Right? But it is mind-boggling. It is mind-boggling that since they believe and they don't have fear of God, they don't believe in supernatural, they believe things happen by chance. To attack the Jewish people at the time they did is unbelievable. I'd say you got a lot of guts here. Tremendous amount of guts there to do that. Because they obliterated the world power. Why in the world are you going to take a chance here? For the greatest nation at that time. Most powerful nation at that time, because they got God behind them. Why would they do that? Because they have no fear of God. Everything happens by chance. So they'll explain 150,000 different ways how they were able to decimate Egypt. But not in the right way, because Torah says God did it. So they're going to use all kinds of excuses to try and show how it would happen in totally different ways. So they don't have fear of God. Mind-boggling. Because again, there's another factor here. And the other factor is what they saw, they didn't see. They didn't hear, they heard about it. They didn't see it. But I would say, even if they did see it, even if they saw some of it, they still try to explain it a different way. Because two people can see the same thing and they explain it different ways. Yeah, I know there are a lot of questions here. Let's deal with some of them. 1 second here. Yeah, 1 second. All right. Did the Egyptian angel vouch the Israelites as a double helix? He didn't have to. The Egyptian angel, who's pleading in front of God for whatever the Egyptian nation wants, right? It's what every angel of every nation does. So this Egyptian angel is literally attached to the hip to a angel of God, angel of the Jewish people. What that means is that for that angel to try and escape is impossible. That's what it's showing in heaven. It's impossible to escape. Right? Now, the Egyptian angel does not have to vouch for the angel of God, for the Jewish people. He knows. Angels know each other. somehow. They recognize each other. They know what the other angel possesses. So it's not a question of vouching or not vouching. That's irrelevant, right? The question is the way they are stationed at this point. Is there any possible way for the Jewish angel to escape? That's really the point. And according to this and according to nature, that'll never happen. It'll absolutely never happen. It's not a question of vouching or not. They understand who each other is. They understand, right? As far as I understand. Yeah. It's not a question of vouching. The question is there any way of escape? Yeah. Is there any way of escape of this other angel from this angel? There are angels that are stronger than other angels. It's hierarchy. You can have, let's say during a hurricane, you can have angels that say protect trees. Yeah. You can have another angel that's an angel of the wind. Angel of this, strong wind coming. Now, if you have an angel of a strong wind coming, I don't know, 150 miles an hour, right? 200 kilometers an hour. And you have an angel that's supposed to protect the tree. Who's going to win out? Well, it depends, right? It depends. Sometimes you see trees get uprooted. So you see this angel is supposed God sending to make this, hurricane, make this wind go much stronger, has more power than this other angel. Got a lot more power. In other words, this angel was able through the wind to uproot the tree. So what happened to the other angel protecting it? They're not all equal. There are different levels, different strengths. So you can say, well, two angels go head to head. God sends them head to head to do certain things. One is probably going to be stronger than the other, probably will prevail. Like it's supposed to, because God wants it to. Right? So again, it's not a question of vouching, right? It's a question of power. Right? It's a question of does that angel have that, that power. So what do you see over here? So you see that the angel is intertwined. That means the angel of God cannot slip away. That angel, for some reason, has a certain level of power over this other angel. That's what it means. And that angel cannot escape. So what did Moses take from that? Very simple. What did he take from that? He took from that there's no possible human way, right? Or according to nature, let's say better. There's no way according to nature that this is going to change. Right? According to nature, it can't happen. So what did God say? So God said, very good. You're right. According to nature, you're right. But God said, I'm above nature. So I'll change nature. Right? Just like Abraham, right? It says that God changed his name from Avram to Avraham. Abraham looks outside. God says, you're going to be his, your offspring on a progeny. You're not going to be able to count like the stars. Yeah, but it says Avraham, but he looked in the stars. He understood astrology. He looked into the stars and he said, but I'm not going to be able to have children. Naturally. Right? With Sarah. Impossible. So God says, you're right. So God changes his name. God changes Avram's name to Avraham. He changes Sarai's name to Sarah. Half of God's name. Right? He adds two letters, half of God's name over here. So you're right. Avram won't have children. So God changed his nature. Or God changed her nature. Right? Literally changed her nature. Because according to nature, she'll never have kids. Never. God changed it. Not just because of her age. It was impossible for her to have children. But God changed her nature. So if God wants to, he can do anything. Right? So he tells Moses, what are you worried about? You're right. According to nature, Jewish people never get out. Okay, but I can run the table over here. I'm part of nature. I'm above nature. I'm not limited. So I can do anything I want. So that's why, one of the reasons, God uses the plagues. Not just to show his power, but to show he's not defined by nature. To show that he's above nature, he can turn nature into a pretzel in order to do what he wants. Someone here mentions, okay, snake has an area of its skull that allows it to be paralyzed, miracle, Moses, magic trick, right? Is it relevant, but maybe part of the story? The snake itself, the whole point of that story with the stick is the fact that Moses wanted something to prove to the elders that he's coming in the name of God, and look what God can do, right? But at the same time, what did he do? He gave the Egyptians the power to do the same thing, right? Turn a staff into a snake, and vice versa. What did that do? It hardened their hearts. Because your God's so powerful. You think, he's going to take you out of Egypt. He's going to do the other things. We're just as powerful. Come on. We're the kings of sorcery. So we're going to show you we can do the same thing. Bam, they did the same thing. Right? Give a person feel weak a little bit over here and say, come on. If you're trying to prove this and they can do it, right? And at some point, what do the Egyptian sorcerers say? Right? But I think by the plague of lice, vermin, what do they say? Etzbe Elohim, this is the finger of God. Now, does God have a finger? No. It's obviously an anthropomorphism. But it says, but they say this is the finger of God. Why? Because this was something they couldn't duplicate. This is something, no matter what they did, there's no possible way to do it. At that point, they're beaten, and they're defeated. And you can't say, oh, we can do this, right? By the thing of the sea, turn the sea into blood and water into blood, they could do that also. Yeah, they had certain power through sorcery. At some point, all their sorcery in the world with all of them together, not going to help. Right? Not going to help. So the proof is in the pudding that, they can only do certain things through sorcery, certainly not everything. And it shows that God's in control. Yeah. What it mentions, okay, so child that was, they're being slaves, Jews were slaves in Egypt. Israel was able to understand the Torah with divine interventions, upgrade to their soul. Okay. Yeah, like it says in the morning prayer where it says, whether you give sight to the eyes. Well, what does sight to the eyes mean? I mean, you could look at it metaphorical, right? Simple explanation, giving sight to the eyes means being able to see. Literally. Right? Literally means to be able to see. That's simple explanation. Now, you could say God gave a person the ability to discern, to make decisions. You have to be able to see, meaning to understand things, not like an animal, not act like an animal. Yeah, as a metaphor, right? To understand it, we're talking a bigger picture here, right? A much bigger picture here. To decipher and understand things that are going on through the eyes of the Torah. Yeah, it's a metaphor. It's using like a metaphor. But usually when we say that prayer in the morning, it's not a metaphor. We're not looking at it to understand that, in God's eyes of understanding and all that. We're not looking at it as a metaphor. We're looking at it simple explanation, right? That God gives us the ability to see. Now, even a blind person. Let's say someone's blind from birth. Yeah, even better. Blind from birth, not necessarily something happened. Something happened to them where they could see and now they're blind. They also have that ability to make that blessing, even though they can't see. But we're talking literally here. The ability to see, right? In general. It's not about, again, you could tell me the ability to see means to understand, make decisions and make the right decisions, see things the way God wants us to. Yeah, you could tell me that, but that's not what it means here. Right? Here it means the ability to see means the ability to see. Literally. Right? We look at that. Literally. Now imagine not starving to death in Egypt. Was it the spiritual starvation? No, I'm talking physical. Physical here. In other words, they were in Egypt. When they were in Egypt, they had food. When they went into what happens when you go in the desert? Unless you take a lot of food with you, you got no resource in the desert. You have no resources. None. So where are you going to get food from? So the manna itself, that was physical. Filled up a person in different ways. That's a different issue. But it was physical. So, the commentaries tell us it tasted like whatever they wanted it to taste like. But that's physical, not spiritual. I'm talking about spiritual nourishment. You're right. Spiritually, God took them out early because they almost reached the highest level of impurity, and then they would have disappeared spiritually. Okay, but again, we're not, we're not looking at multiple layers here. That wasn't the point. There are other things going on, but that's all we're talking about. When the Jewish people said, in while they're in the desert, we missed the fish and we missed the watermelon and we missed other things and all that. They weren't talking in spiritual terms. They were talking 100% physical terms, which makes it very hard to understand, because God took care of all their needs, and they're in a much better position than they were before. They're in the middle of a desert, okay, but God's working on their emunah, that everyone agrees. God was working on their faith and belief in Him. But it was very hard because, again, old Mother Hubbard ain't nothing in the cupboard. That's physical. So when they're missing, at least simple explanation, when they're missing, they're missing the, the fish and the watermelon, we're not talking about in spiritual terms. We're talking they're missing something physical because they, the man itself, they didn't think they're on the level to keep getting it for so long. And that maybe they would have done something to make a mistake. And because of that, they weren't worthy. Same thing. Yaakov says to God, when he goes to Esau, he's about to confront Esau. He says, take care of my needs and feed me. God says he will. And then he asks him a second time. What do you mean a second time? God already said. If God says he's going to fulfill it and take care of it, what are you worried about? What was the answer commentary say? He was worried he might blow it. He might do something to sin. He's not worthy of that protection. So, yeah. So we're talking about, missing the fish or missing, missing the watermelon. Yeah, that's physical terms, not spiritual terms. Somebody asked, one second. Yeah, one second. Yeah, another question here. Is it okay to not know what you will do because really God is in charge? You got to put your best foot forward. But again, any decision a person makes, usually, any decision where a person's going to end up and what they're going to do, you're right, God's in charge. God's in charge, but you got to make educated decisions. You can't just say, well, I'm going to leave it up to God and that's it. Right? You got to pray that God leads you in the right direction. God puts you in the right direction, but you got to put your best foot forward. Where's the best place to go? Where's it going to be best, financially? I mean, you can't know, it's sometimes hard to know. Right? It's not so easy to know. But you want divine guidance. You pray for that, but you have to put your best foot forward. Right? Not knowing how things are going to end up, that's not a lack of emunah here. Right? We believe 100% that, whatever we do, even if it looks bad or starts out bad, it's going to end up good. Right? There are a lot of things we see maybe that look bad that are actually, turn in our favor, for good. Many things like that, but we can't necessarily foresee that. In other words, when a person goes through something, they have difficulty. Right? They have a certain difficulty, whatever it may be. Yeah, you got to pray that God blesses it. Yeah, that God sorts it out and and takes care of it for the good. Don't you believe everything is for the good? But it's kind of hard to see the good. It's not always easy to see the good. Yeah, I've seen a number of times things looked really bad. Right? Seemingly looked really bad. And in the end, it was a blessing in disguise. It's a major blessing in disguise. But it's very hard to know that. But at the end of the day, we do believe firmly that if one door gets closed, other doors open. But when you're being strangled and you're on your knees, it's hard to say that. Right? It's hard to believe that because, things look very bleak. I remember, when I was down, someone had, stolen all my money. Someone had said, well, at least the only place you can go is up because you're down. Right. It's kind of hard to hear at the time, but I understood, definitely understood what the person meant, but it's hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel when everything looks dark. Doesn't mean doesn't mean the darkness is going to be there forever. Doesn't necessarily mean the light's going to change overnight either, right? God has his ways of doing it. It could take weeks, it could take months. I don't know. However, God's going to change, it'll change it, right? By not ultimately knowing what to do, again, there's nothing worse than being in doubt. So what does the person have to do? They have to get guidance. They should get guidance, not just say, well, whatever's going to be is going to be. Well, it's like any major purchase a person's going to do in general. That you got to look at all the factors. You got to see, something that's, a very hefty purchase. You're not taking it lightly. You're not just winging it. You're not going to say, oh, well, let's see what happens. You're going to investigate it. How are you going to do it? How's it going to be possible? It's got to be realistic, right? It's like anything. A person's not going to make a major person say, well, I'm going to wing it. Have a plan, backup plan, a third plan, a fourth plan, whatever. You say, well, if God wants me to have it, I'll have it. It doesn't work in business, right? It doesn't work in most things. So you got to put your best foot forward. Now, putting your best foot forward, that's not a guarantee, right? That's not a guarantee for anything. As Chosavova says in the heart and gate of Bitachon, right? In Shar Bitachon, the gate of faith and belief in God, he says that explicitly. You have to put your best foot forward. I don't think anyone says anything different. You have to put your best foot forward. But putting your best foot forward is not a guarantee for success. Because you need the ultimate thing. You need God to bless it. God doesn't bless it, doesn't matter what you do. You won't have success if he doesn't bless it. If he does bless it, okay. Yeah. But you have to put your best foot forward. Right? You definitely have to put your best foot forward. But again, a person's not going to jump in blind. That's irresponsible. Right? That you can't do. You would never do that in anything else. So same thing over here. Right? That's what I would say. Same thing over here. Do we metaphorically have Amalek in us? And the whole angel thing, with divine intervention, stops the evil eye. A person can make bad decisions. And that bad decision is not because you have an angel inside of you or whatever, but a person can make the mistake and think that, let's say whatever, they were successful in a certain thing, and they say, I did this. People are praising them and they get a little bit haughty, a little bit conceited, I would say. And they forget God. Can happen. That would mean you're a part of Amalek in yourself that you have to work on. Right? That's what it would mean. But I would say someone who's God-fearing and working on themselves, that shouldn't be the case. That should definitely not be the case. Even if a person stumbles, and fails, doesn't mean the person has Amalek necessarily in them. Right? But if you put too much stock into the work of your own hands, then the person hasn't got the message. And the person thinks they're the ones in control. Yeah. But that can be part of it. I'm not saying it will be. A person has to be in control. Yeah, a person has to be aware that could happen. And my Rebbe would say, a person has to be aware also that the things are going well. Let's say things are going exceedingly well. My Rebbe would say, how do you know? Kind of scary thought, but how do you know God hasn't given you this world, given you merit for this world? In other words, giving you reward for things you've done in this world, and really you've lost your portion of the world to come. Yeah. In other words, how do you know God's not paying you back for the mitzvahs you've done and you're going to get nothing later? Well, it's kind of a scary thought. When you think about it, so, like, why should it be? Why, if a person's successful, why should it be that way? Why does a person think that? That God has given you, everything, because maybe it's going to be to the extent of other mitzvahs that you've done. So someone asked me in Q&A last week, someone had asked, if you're on a roll and things are going well, how do you stay on that? How do you keep that momentum going? So my answer was, you keep praying like you have nothing. Because even if it's going well now, you don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. You don't know what the next day is going to bring, right? King Solomon already said that in Proverbs, right? You don't know what today's going to bring. You don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. So even if things are going well now, tomorrow's another day. You don't know. Things are going to turn over overnight, right? You can't be too confident. Even if things are going well now. My Rebbe tells a story. He always tells the story before Rosh Hashanah. Someone comes to him and he wants the blessing. So he says, "What blessing you want?" He says, "Listen, business has been very successful this year. Thank God. And, I want God to mind his own business. I don't want him to interfere with my life. I want things to be going smoothly. I want him to, mind his own business." Then someone came to him. So I'm glad they came to you with that, not me. But he said, "How can I give you a blessing like that? The blessing in vain. God's giving you everything. He's taking care of your needs. Yeah, you want him to mind his own business? To leave you to the elements? I don't think you want that. Yeah. So, even if things are going well, you pray like you have nothing. Because you don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. You have no idea. So you pray that God, feel like you have nothing, even if, things are going well. Because there's no guarantee one day to the next, right? That's why we said before, said that you can't, when it comes to, if things are good, you can't expect, they're going to stay that way, right? Or even better, that you have to, you have to take stock, of what you've done, and that you should repent the day. Sorry, you should really, you should repent the day before you die, right? So the question is, you don't know when you're going to die. You have no idea, so you should repent every day, right? Because you don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. So I brought there, as mentioned many times, that as King Solomon says, you don't know what today's going to bring. You don't even know what tomorrow's going to bring. Either today is very good, tomorrow could be a disaster, or vice versa, or whatever. So you got to put your best foot forward. That we have no choice. But a person shouldn't think, because I put my best foot forward, that the success came through me. Success only comes through God. It doesn't come through you. But you have to put your best foot forward. Right? You have to do that. Everybody has to do that. Right? But that's not a guarantee for success. People say, I tweak it this way, tweak it that way, did more advertising, less advertising, blah, blah, blah. Doesn't matter. If God wants it to go, it'll go. Man, in the 70s, people remember, someone invented pet rock. Yeah, you don't have to feed it, you don't have to walk it. Beautiful, put it in a nice box. The person made millions from it. So I heard a great rabbi once say, yeah, if I would have done that, they would have taken the rock and thrown it at me. Right? Depends on a person's mazel. Right? If it's heavily influenced, God wants you to make money, you can make money from that. From a stupid pet rock. Or imagine someone invented these small wooden umbrellas that you put in cocktail drinks. Does that make any sense? Someone should make millions from that. Someone made a lot of money from that. Right? Crazier things. Crazier things. So what does that tell you? It tells you that God wants you to make money. And again, forget about hitting the lottery or anything else. It has nothing to do with intelligence. It has nothing to do with intelligence. He wants you to make money, you make money from it. He doesn't want you to make money. No matter what you do, you won't make money from it. Or maybe you'll be up, maybe you'll be down, but some things will never go. Maybe. Yeah, someone, come on. This idea of a pet rock. What are the odds? What are the odds someone's going to come and make a mint on a pet rock? Really? You think, forget about the marketing and everything else. Great idea. You don't have to walk, you don't have to feed it. It's a rock. Essentially, it's a rock in a box. God wanted the person to make a mint. Okay. Yeah. Very strange, but you got plenty of people with no college degrees or whatever, made a lot of money through different things. So it's not about a degree over here. Right? It's about God wants you to have money or whatever. right? It says in Pirke Avos in Shar B'tachon, we mentioned before, in the gate of Amunah, a person, God's going to make a person successful, be able to make money one or two ways. Either he's going to give you brains, and therefore you'll be able to make money in many different ways, potentially many different ways. And what if a person's not granted with a lot of brain power? Not so bright. Okay. No matter what he does or she does, it's not going to be so bright. Okay. So give them brawn, give them strength, be able to make money through their hands, right? Be able to do physical things, physical labor. You need physical labor, right? If you have physical labor, things will get built. Okay. So God's going to give it to you one way or the other. He's going to give you the opportunity to make money one way or another. Either it comes from brains or brawn. That's it, right? That's really the only two things. So, and even if you have brains, doesn't mean, you'll be successful. So, but again, you got to put your best foot forward, and whatever success a person has, they have to realize it doesn't come from them. Right? God blessed it, but it's not essentially from them. What about those who fear men continue the Amalek beliefs out of fear? They behave like they're just dumb. No, I'm not going to say that. I won't go that far. In other words, if they believe in Amalek, they don't have fear of God. It doesn't go hand in hand. They're not Amalek with fear of God. That wouldn't make any sense. That's like saying military intelligence. It's an oxymoron. Yeah. If they're Amalek, they don't believe in God. They don't believe in supernatural. Yeah. And certainly they don't have fear of God. If they're not Amalek, it's a different story. But if they're part of Amalek, that's what they believe. Now, you could ask me, can their beliefs change? Yeah. Their beliefs can change. Not going to be so easy, but their beliefs can change. Right? I came to the conclusion that Torah was true when I was born Jewish, but I came to the conclusion, I have to see 100% the other side. I grew up in the conservative movement, so I know much about it. I mean, I learned more about it, but to me, it didn't work. I had good reasons why it didn't work. I wanted to see the other side, but I came to the conclusion, even looking at all this stuff, that I saw very intelligent people just acting like animals. And I just didn't make sense to me. How you could be so intelligent, be an animal at the same time, talking about, 10, 20 billion times more intelligent I'll be in 10 lifetimes. Yeah. Doesn't make sense to me. Totally didn't make sense to me. It makes a lot of sense now. But a great rabbi once say, imagine, you're in the middle of the ocean on a sailboat, no motor, and the sailboat, you take the rudder, you throw it overboard. So where does the sailboat go? Right? Wherever direction the wind takes it. So the rudder, we would say is Torah. And if you don't have that anchor of Torah, then you're just spinning your wheels. You're just going wherever the wind takes you, wherever the wind of thought or belief or whatever, wherever it takes you, that's where you go. I couldn't imagine this. So I came to the conclusion as a young adult that, either, I have to see how the other side lives, or the fact that the whole world is cracked. Or I have to go, see a shrink, which, I still may have to, but that didn't make sense to me. So how could the whole world be cracked? And the answer is because they don't have Torah. See, if the non-Jews say they have wisdom, you believe them, the Gemara says. But if the non-Jews say they have Torah, you don't believe them. So you look at the world without Torah, and it's upside down. Men aren't men, women aren't women, who knows what. I mean, it's a crazy society. Crazy society. Can't make this stuff up. So if you look at the world, so I looked at the world saying, like, there is something seriously messed up here. Seriously messed up. Then people would say, you think too much. You overthink things. I just go have fun, do this, do that. Like, but it bothered me. How can you have intelligent people acting like animals? If you don't have Torah, you're an animal. We learned that from who? None other than Aristotle. Right? Aristotle, great mind. Maybe one of the greatest minds that ever lived. But his students caught him doing terrible, disgusting things. So he said, how can you be Aristotle, the great thinker? I said, what do you mean? Is Aristotle the great thinker? Because Aristotle does his other stuff. Right? It's well known he was a quack in other ways. Very well known. So we don't compartmentalize. Torah is Torah. right? Again, doesn't mean we're perfect. Doesn't mean we're perfect by any stretch. But you have a way to reach perfection. You have a way to perfect your soul. Anything else, you have no way to do it. The mind can only take you so far, right? The mind does not make you moral. The more intelligent, the less moral you are. That's what it sounds like. Yeah, you saw that by Nazi Germany, right? May their names be brought out, may they rot wherever they are. Look what they did. We're the first people to join the Third Reich. They weren't skinheads. They weren't beaten down to believe in them. These were the intelligentsia, right? Academics, doctors, lawyers, accountants. They bought into the system. They believed treat a dog better than a Jew. They believed it. Yeah. Now, 70 years later, you see that in universities today. When someone has to say genocide depends on the context. You have to cotton picking head. Depends on context. Imagine if they would have said that about blacks. And that was a black person talking. Yeah, genocide against blacks only depends on the context. What do you think the blacks would have done? What in the world do you think they would have done? That's kind of offensive. Extremely offensive. Depends on the context? Really? Could have burned down every city in America. That's not an exaggeration. Oh, you say it against Jews? Oh, it's a different issue. This is like the cream of the crop of intelligence in America, is what they're telling you. So what does it mean? It means intelligence does not breed morality. Even the greatest of intelligence. Now imagine, you got these kids at these universities, a bunch of thugs and punks and whatever, but at these top universities, quote unquote. Yeah, these are going to be the movers and shakers of the next generation. Saying from the river to the sea, which they don't know which river or which sea. Total ignoramuses on that, but know nothing about Israeli history or any of that. But we're not going to go there either. This is what they're breeding. This is what intelligence is breeding today. Be a bunch of thugs, anti-Semites. Kind of a problem. But these are going to be, these are going to be the movers and shakers of the next generation. It's crazy. So then the last part of the question was, these people of Amalek, in this case, which wouldn't be the case, but in this case, do they have the spark of Amunah? What spark of Amunah do they have? They don't believe in supernatural, so why would they have Amunah? They don't have Amunah. Can they repent? Yes. Can they change? Yeah. But if you've already been brainwashed, generations have been brainwashed, kind of hard to change. Individuals might be able to change. The entire society to change? No. Right? But individuals could change. It's going to be very hard to change, but it can't happen. I'm not saying not. They should be able to. Could we say destroying the Amalek is eliminating doubt and feeding the passionate, fiery love of God? Right, you got to get rid of the doubt. 100%. 100%. You have to get rid of the doubt. Right? You got to bring God back into the world. Right? So yeah. So if we serve God properly, and we serve God in a passionate way, yeah. So that brings godliness to the world. That defeats Amalek. Right? That defeats Amalek. Become part of the Jewish people. They're also part of Amalek. They don't really believe in God. Yeah. They don't believe he's in charge. So we're our own worst enemy. But in general, if we would do what we're supposed to do in a much better way, in a much stronger way, sure, then that power gets weakened. But you're fighting against a lot of elements also. But in theory, yeah, that's true. Right? That is definitely true. Question is, it's doubt or lack of emunah. It's both. Right? Doubts. See, Amalek has no doubts in the sense that they don't believe, they're convinced there is no supernatural. But they brought doubt to the world, saying that there shouldn't be supernatural. But there absolutely shouldn't be supernatural. That's what they brought. They brought this doubt to the world. Someone asks, when you say God's not going to take that sitting down, is that reflected when angels pinned down Amalek? No. What I meant was that, if this goes according to that course, right, in the nation, or people in the nation are saying it's the power of my arms, right? It's the power of my hand, that's stopping Hamas, it's stopping Iran. It's the power of my hand. Much more dangerous. Much more dangerous, because they're taking God out of the picture entirely. And nothing to do with the angels pinning down Amalek or not. What it has to do with is the fact that people are saying that God's not in the picture. When you do that, that's 10 times worse. 10 times worse. Because then what you're doing is you're saying that it's everything we do. It's the power of our arms. It's the power of the fact we have nuclear weapons. It's the power of our intelligence that we do, blah, 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 which takes God right out of the picture. Right? Right out of the picture. And that, my Rebbe says, more dangerous almost than anything else. Because you're not acknowledging where the power comes from. You think the power comes from yourself. It's not true. Definitely not true. 1 second. There's that. Okay. So that's, a person in this process wants to learn Torah. Yeah, they want to learn Torah to the best of their ability. And what they have is a lot of distractions, or a lot of people trying to stop them. Well, let's ask a question like this. Right? Let's ask a question like this. Somebody wants to go on the right path. So the Gemara says God will help them. If they want to go on the wrong path, God won't stop them. Okay. Now, going in the right path, does that mean it's going to be easy? When we say that God's not going to stop you, it's going to, you have a lot of encouragement along the way. Very good. You'll get help along the way. But even if you get help along the way, it does not mean by any stretch it's going to be easy. Now, are there going to be elements going to try and take you away from it? Yes. Are going to people say, be normal? Be like us, go out and party, do this, do that. Yeah. They're going to say you study too much. Yeah. Isn't that a test to your resolve, whether you're going to keep it or not? Whether you're going to go on that path? Sure. With that, I'd rather be it easier. There are 3 things that are hard to acquire in this world. The Gemara says. One of them is the land of Israel. Like going to live there, staying there. Not so easy. Olam Haba, the next world, right? Trying to acquire that. And Torah. You want to acquire Torah, it's got to be the most important thing you'll ever do. And you got to make plans to do it, regardless of what people say around you. You got to be like Abraham and say, I could care less. Or my Rebbe would say, go eat kugel. You don't like it? You go eat kugel. I won't be that obnoxious, but, that means you got to be very strong, no matter what people say or do. You're going to go in this path. Doesn't matter whether it's a Jew or a non-Jew. Doesn't matter. Because people will discourage you. What do you think? Christian Bible and the Christians have been lying to me for the last 50 years? Yes. There's a lot of pressure. People want you to be normal, be like that. What if you don't believe in JC? Come on. Are you not believe in JC? Oh, yeah, I got proof. You want to see it? No. They don't want to see it. They don't want to hear it. But they want pressure. You should be normal. You should be like everybody else. Yeah. Why do you dress that way? Come on. It's 150 degrees out. Right? Why do you dress that way? Why are you dressed all covered up? Come on. These antiquated laws, this, that. People put a lot of pressure. They want you to be like them. They don't want to feel guilty for what they do. So you got to be strong. You got to be really strong. No question. A lot of pressure. Family pressure. Friends. Thank God people have given up on me. Yeah. They say you're too far gone, this, that, nothing can help, right? Let them say. Let people talk. But is it annoying? Yeah. It's annoying. But move on. Someone who's mentally challenged, I don't give a rat's tail what they say. And all these people are mentally challenged when it comes to spiritual terms. You don't have a PhD, pilot higher and deeper, or Papa has dough. All I care they have a PhD. Yeah. I don't know anything about Judaism. So what? They're like a 5-year-old in Judaism. Good. Not saying they don't have questions, they could have good questions, whatever, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Most people just want you to be like everyone else. Be normal. Don't lose any sleep over. Come on, don't overthink this, that. Yeah, that's a test. That's a test. Is your resolve going to stay strong or not? That's part of the test. When the Jews left Egypt, is that part of being a light into the nations? Well, they couldn't. It's very hard to be a light into the nations when, they were stuck being beaten in Egypt, right? So once they came out, yeah. So they're given that charge. God took them as a people, made them into a nation, gave them the Torah, right? And and then the Torah says you got to be light into nations. So God changed them. I mean, it's a big miracle. Took them out of their slave mentality, made them a nation. Etc. But that's part of it. Getting the Torah, part of it is, you're supposed to be a light into nations. So we have to be exemplary. We have to be the best we can be. Right? Orthodox Jews held to a higher pedestal, no question. So we got to be much more careful. Much more careful. Pet rock. I've been a dark soul, I've been reincarnated to be a rock. Well, first of all, even if it would be, right? Even let's say, we said before that a person, let's say if they bullied in their lifetime, could come back as a rock. Yeah, that rock can't do anything. That rock gets kicked around or thrown around, right? So yeah, it's been reincarnated, let's say, to be a rock, so it can't do more damage. The whole point, or I shouldn't say the whole point. One major point of, let's say, a person being reincarnated into a rock is that rock can't do anything. That rock is now, whatever happens to it, happens to it, but that rock has no power. That rock itself can't pick itself up and do anything, right? They say so it can't cause more damage. Okay, but what's the soul doing there? Soul's being punished by being put into the rock. I shouldn't say punished. That's the way it's going to get fixed up, by being put in the rock. It's not doing damage in heaven. You don't have to worry about that. God's taking care of that soul. That soul, that soul's being punished, and God's taking care of that. But in this world, that soul goes into the rock. The rock can't do nothing. The rock does whatever it's done to it. Not any way around. Right? The rock is not just going to throw itself up and cause all kinds of damage. Rock can't do that. Just kicks around, gets kicked around, thrown around. It's got no power. Right? It's got no power. So it's getting fixed up. If the reincarnated soul's in a rock, the point is to get fixed up. The soul gets fixed up. It's not causing any damage in heaven, no question. Right? God's taking care of that in whatever way, but it's not causing any other damage. Well, the star of Solomon compared to the Star of David. I don't know. That I don't know. Someone asked about an animalistic behavior. Yeah, it's just wrong. It's just crazy. It is weird. I mean, we have a perspective of what we see as being ultimately right and wrong in the eyes of the Torah, right? That we see. That we see. But after a person is, hears enough Torah, then they understand, right? Right? Then they understand clearer. So when you see things go on that even you might have done, earlier or whatever, that makes you think. Right? It makes you think. It's like, wow, this is really weird, right? True. Wasn't so weird, 10 years ago, or maybe it was, but wasn't, it didn't go in that direction. Very good. But, see a lot of things today that, very strange and, very strange and weird behavior, but these could be things we might have even thought of or might have done years ago. We didn't think it was strange. We did what everyone else did, more or less. Right? But now you get a different perspective. You're looking at the world a different way. So when you look at the world a different way, it's a different thing. Someone here says, yeah, getting told stop listening to your rabbi. That's the last thing I'll do. Yeah. Again, is it a distraction what people say? Sure. I had somebody, another story that they were very close to my Rebbe, and that father tells his daughter, says, listen, I have all this money, I have all this wealth. I'm willing to give you all this money and all this wealth as long as you don't listen to that Rabbi Sternbuch. As long as you don't listen to him, I'll give you all this money. So imagine person to inherit a fortune. And the father says, fortune comes with a condition. You can't listen to your rabbi. Yeah. It's a big test. But you're right. You hear this type. You hear all these things as a distraction. Yeah. That's what I said. It's a big distraction. How do you overcome the distraction? You listen to them. So I would tell you, these people try and distract you. You got to just cut off ties. Or just tell them, go fly a kite. This is what I'm doing. This is the direction I'm going. That's it. It's a hard thing. We've been friends for many years, this and that. So at some point, you got to part ways. Either you can agree to disagree. Not saying you can't have a friendship, but, if that's the way it's going to go and that's going to continue, then you got to draw the line. That family or friends can be an albatross, an absolute albatross. So, at some point, you just got to cut your losses. I'm not, someone say, would you tell people to cut off from family? It depends. It depends on the situation. Or if they're going to keep hammering you day in and day out, then you got to be normal, you got to be this, you got to be that, and trying, and trying to dissuade you, and, it's not healthy. It just gets you aggravated. As they say, well, it's a distraction. Of course it's a distraction. What do you think? Mr. S is going to make it easy? Right? The Satan, the evil inclination, the angel of death, you think it's going to make it easy? It's not his job. His job's not to make it easy. Once, person's tested. That's part of the test in this world. If someone say, mother says to them, come on, isn't there anything more important than God? Hammer it. Hammer it. What's the simple answer? No, it's nothing more important. You lose friends along the way. It's just going to happen. Doesn't have to, but probably will happen. They just think you're a fruitcake. Okay, eventually they'll leave you alone. But if they see you waver a little bit or whatever, if they see that, then what are they going to do? They'll keep hammering you till you break. I'm not saying it's good, but that's what they'll do. All they have to do is see a little bit of weakness, and they'll just pounce on the weakness. And eventually that weakness will get, weaker and weaker, and then you just you just forget all this stuff and go further. Go further with them. That's what it'll do. It'll take you away. So you say it's not fair, it's a distraction. You're right. This whole world's a distraction, but it's a test. The whole thing is a test. Some have it easier, some don't. But yeah, it's a test. It's a big test. No question. Doesn't mean we're not up for the test. Doesn't mean we can't succeed. Doesn't mean that. Yeah. Any other society is a big test. Living in society. Even if you're part of a Jewish community, it's a big test. Still a big test. No question. All these things get thrown at us that are just antithetical to Torah. Social media, the media, other things, sure, it's all a test. But we got to be stronger than that. We're going to say something more important than Torah, and that's it. Very easy to get distracted with what's going on in the world. Very, very easy. It's all what God wants, but he made the world a distraction. Or the ability for us to be distracted. He doesn't want that. He wants you to be focused, but it's easy to get distracted. Many things. Many things. Yeah, any other questions? Someone says, may Shem give us all the strength and vigor, go about our lives, remain on the right path, right? Right. Distractions, yeah, they don't stop. They absolutely don't stop. But we become who we are through the tests. How Abraham became so great. He had all these tests. He gave us the ability to fight these tests as well. But doesn't mean the tests are easy. Each person, whatever they have to go through in every generation. Yeah. Any other questions? All right, I'm going to stop here. I do this every Saturday, 2 o'clock Eastern Time, 5 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 9 o'clock Israel time. Anyone has any questions, find me on Facebook at Michael Chaim Kaufman, Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism, orthodoxconversion.com, Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism on YouTube. There I got videos on Ethics of Our Fathers, Q&As, Book of Leviticus. You want to send me an email, rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, RBBICHAIMCOFFMAN @gmail.com. Wish everyone a good beginning of the day, middle of the day.